All right, and welcome to the Going Ballistic podcast. We're at episode number 31. And man, this is a few weeks we've had where we did a podcast every week. I'm proud of us. I hope you're proud of us too. And by us, I'm joined here with my cousin and partner in crime in this podcast. Say hello to everyone, Jason.
Hello, everybody.
So
glad to be here again.
Good. I'm glad to have you back, man. I was talking to somebody recently, and there's like, talking about the Cleckner boys. They're like, well, yeah, the Cleckner boys, da, da, da. And then I said, what do you mean, the Cleckner boys? I said, well, you guys are just like all like long-range shooters and stuff. And I laughed. I said, yeah, we kind of do have that. Like the family is a bunch of hunters and shooters and everything. And I take that for granted, I guess, that the experience I had as growing up with the family, man, I probably would never be into guns if it wasn't for the, all those Mormon-like, camping trips of the 3D archery shoots and the hunting trips and things like that.
Well, and it's funny too, because as kids, most of our trips were all bow and arrow, and we did hunt with rifles and stuff, but a lot of our trips were archery, and you've progressed it into long range and getting me into it, which is a nice step out of my world of hunting. So it's been good. It's been great.
Yeah, it's at least something to do in the off season, right?
Or if you don't get drawn, like I did this year. So
well, you can also move to states like Tennessee, where you don't have to worry about getting drawn for most animals. You can get...
Yeah, that'd be a nice change.
I have to do the math on it sometime, but I think the archery season here, how long it is, that you can get something like 60 deer a season.
Jeez.
I forget what it's because I moved from Alabama recently, so I forget. So people that Tennessee, correct me, of course, but I think it's a doe a day or 2 does a day for the whole season, and then $2 anywhere in the season you want. Where Alabama was $5 anywhere in the season you wanted. The hunting license in Alabama was actually printed out on a piece of paper, and they had a bunch of empty blank spots. And part of the regs required that you had a pen with you out in the field, and that before the animals moved, you had to put down the date and your initials. Because of the game warden never caught you dragging an animal, they wanted to check. So that just goes to show you. And they even say when you run out of spots, you can attach a piece of paper and staple it. And there's like 20 spots there for the deer. So that's kind of a cool way. Instead of getting a tag, you literally just write down the date and your initials so that they find you with the deer. You can be like, oh no, I already marked this one for today. Because there's only one day of the season. I think you're allowed up to 5 deer. It's crazy how much you can hunt out here. I actually have a friend of mine is trying to introduce me to this property owner who has too many deer. He's actively seeking people to come onto his property to get rid of the deer because the local Game and Fish said that he could call 100 something head of deer. So to get some hunters in here to help out his population on the property. I'm like, all right,
wow,
that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, I'm not used to anything like that. Ours is a lottery system, and you just kind of keep your fingers crossed each year.
And deer, I mean, I get it, but I grew up thinking deer hunting was what you did when you didn't get drawn for elk. Like it was second place for elk hunting, which I think it kind of is in Arizona still. But out here, deer tastes amazing. Like I prefer deer meat out here. For some reason, the deer just in the Southwest is pretty gamey.
Yeah, same thing when the boys go to Alaska. I mean, the Sitka deer, they're awesome. It's amazing meat.
Well, people are already putting some comments up on YouTube. Big Sexy, who I'm not sure didn't just choose that name so they could get me to say it on the podcast, asked, how will shooting through snow affect your bullet over 500 to 600 yards or none? That's a good question, and I'd love to get into that, but I think that's probably too much to cover here. The snow's not going to matter on the ground unless you're really shooting through the snow, in which case your bullet's only going to go a few yards. But if you're shooting over the snow, that's almost irrelevant. What matters is going to be the temperature and the atmosphere. But again, that's probably a full podcast for us to catch up on. So I'll keep that in mind, Big Sexy. Someone sent me an email too. I should have looked it up, but I didn't. I've been racing in here to talk to Jason because so much has been going on. Casey says Arizona is open on mountain lions, so I could always do that. You're right, Casey. And I've actually had more than one mountain lion tag over the counter. And I've even had a couple opportunities to shoot a mountain lion in Arizona, and I've never done it. And call me a tree hugger if you want, but part of the reason is mountain lions are just so dang majestic that when I see one, I just want to watch it. I don't know. What do you think about that, Jason?
Oh, I'd shoot one in a second.
Would you really?
Oh yeah. I've been stalked by 2 of them archery hunting.
Okay, well, that's a different story.
And
Fine, I'll shoot one of them
yeah,
then.
it's well, I wasn't close enough to stick one, but I thought, I tell you what, it gets any closer, and this is going to be a self-defense matter
Yeah, that's
here
different. That's
over anything.
different. Yeah, it's just the I don't know. I love hunting, and I have no problem hunting cute animals or any animals because I'm hunting for meat and food. But for something about mountain lions, I don't know. Maybe they're my long lost spirit animal or something. When I see them, I'm just like, wow, those things are amazing. Yeah, I don't know. Can't just mess with it. It's just different to me. Hydrolife wants me to be his dad, or maybe that's to Jason or her dad. I don't know who Hydrolife is. Um, who knows? Might be a possibility, depending on age. Liked the video series in SSF. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. We're actually, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, so I'm going to get really close to the microphone like it's a secret. And like, you guys don't tell anybody, okay? I'm doing a new video series with the NSSF in a week and a half. So we're actually flying out to an awesome location, and we're going to spend days just filming nothing but new shooting tips for the NSSF videos. So remember, I didn't tell you. I think it might be a secret. I'll tell you more about it when we're finished. So that'll be cool. We didn't get last week. I was so off and out of sorts, which I appreciate you giving me a pass, Jason, and just letting me ramble for a little bit, and we stopped. But did we really ever get to talk about the course that was out there? I mean, we did a little bit, right?
Yeah, we covered it a little bit.
Okay. It just the shame was the shortness of the time, and I keep thinking about that. I've been emailing the students back and forth ever since then about, yeah, you're right. We did kind of skip over that, and that's because that would have normally been a day. You know, that hour I took to cover a topic. So I want to teach some more courses. It really scratched an itch to try and teach more. Just don't have it in the cards yet. So what else is new with you, Jason? Have you been shooting at all? You've been tinkering things with your guns. What's going on, bud?
No, nothing new for me. As you know, I went this weekend, saw my daughter, and helped my brother move back to Arizona. So hopefully I'll have a partner in crime to go out and shoot with a little bit more. That'd be nice.
Awesome. I mean, it's sad that he's back in the Phoenix area because it's just
we're excited.
Hot and concrete.
We're excited to
but
have him
personally, it's great to have him back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Stephen Woods wants to know how your scope shadow is working out.
You know, I haven't been able to test it. I'm actually supposed to start going to Flagstaff next weekend. We're going to be doing a job up at NAU up there over the next couple weekends. And I'm going to take my guns, and I'm actually going to try to time it at that same time frame at that same place and play with that a little bit and see how that works. So I'm hoping to get that done. I'm also hoping this weekend I'm going to try my best to get out and finish getting both the 308 and the AR completely dialed in from what we talked about when I shot at my 500 and my 800 yard marks. Now that I have my 500 dialed in, I just want to finish that off and get that done.
Okay.
And then from here, like I said, since I didn't get drawn for anything this year, I want to try varmint hunting. So I get to play with changing my 100-yard zeros like we discussed a little bit, because nothing tells you what you need to be at each location. I just need to know my zeros where I like to hunt so I can just make the adjustments as I go.
Yeah.
So with work schedules like anybody else, it's hard to get out and do it, but I'm doing my best, and I'm excited to get it done.
Good. That's why I like reloading or hand loading, because sometimes you're using a new not redoing them. Is it gives you a chance to tinker with guns for 20 minutes. You know, you don't have a chance to actually go do anything on the range. It can, to keep using the same phrase, scratch that gun itch, out in the garage for a little bit and get back inside. So that's cool, man. I think it's semi-scientific that you're going out there to do the same location and timing. That'd be cool.
Oh, yeah.
Eli has a question about when shooting angles, is the flight time based on the straight line distance, or does the angle change the flight time? I know what you're asking, Eli, but to be ultra clear for everybody else, the flight time is not being changed, right? The flight time is what the flight time is. It's all about calculating what the flight time is going to be. And the flight time of the bullet really isn't different because it's still traveling straight line to the target. I shouldn't say straight line. It's still traveling all the way to the target. It's traveling the view you have as a laser rangefinder from you to the target. It's still going that distance. However, the gravity is only going to pull it off of its original path as if it was covering only the horizontal component of the ground. So if you were on, topic we're going to talk about next, I had no idea. I got to watch my examples now. I used to seriously say if you're at the top of a building, shooting down from the top of a high-rise building. Well, we'll talk about that, the Las Vegas, horrible shooting next. But if you're on the top of the edge of a building, shooting straight down the edge of the building, you're going to have a flight time of the bullet all the way to the ground, but it's going to cover 0 feet horizontally across the ground, so gravity is not going to pull it off its original path. So it's not really the flight time, it's the angle. And the rest of you all, if you've read the book or you research that, you know what we're talking about there without getting too much into it. Jeff wants to know if I'm going to be at SHOT Show. Yeah, I'm at SHOT Show every year, even some years when I don't want to be. I tried to get Jason to go earlier this year, and it just didn't work out for timing. Maybe we'll get Jason out there too. I mean, after all, he is on the Going Ballistic podcast. That's got to be in the firearms industry enough to get into the SHOT Show.
You would think, right?
Yeah, and we have Cleckner Rifle Company, and your last name is Cleckner, so come on, that's a no-brainer too. So yeah, I'm at SHOT Show last year or this year. So last SHOT Show, I did a book signing in the Hornady booth. That was really cool. Hornady had me in there to sign books, and I'm actually sending emails this week with people back and forth on whose booth I'm going to be in for next year, and if I'm going to have another book or things like that. Yeah. So trying to keep up with the questions. I feel bad because most of the people on the podcast don't go live on YouTube. So I want to be responsive, but I don't want to bore everybody else listening right now. So I'll try and keep an eye. Jason, help me keep an eye on those, please. And if one really pops out, make sure I get to it. But we kind of got to talk about the elephant in the room, the horrible tragedy that happened in Las Vegas. When did you first hear about it, Jason?
I heard about it the next morning on my way to work. My heart and prayers go out to all the victims and families. It's just a horrible thing.
Yeah, no doubt. I had in-laws in town, and I woke up and they were already in the kitchen. I'm like, "Hey, good morning. How's it going?" Going over to make some coffee, and they were talking to me, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, some like crazy mass shooting happened." I'm like, "Huh? What?" And sad to say, that's not that uncommon news. We're a shooting like that at least every year. You're hearing about things, or things are called mass shootings that might just be a domestic violence issue or something like that. But either way, I heard it. I'm like, oh, weird. That's weird. I started looking into it, and I had actually first noticed when I woke up is checking websites, checking business traffic. I didn't check the news yet. I'm like, wow, that's a weird spike. That's really cool. A lot of people are looking into getting their FFLs, and I had no idea why. And I heard the news. I'm like, oh. And then right away, when I looked at the news stories, I went and looked at just some industry metrics, from stock prices and things like that, and everything started shooting up again. I was like, holy smokes, this is everywhere. This is a panic all over again, and people are skipping over the fact, which I kind of can't blame them. But 59 people died, hundreds more injured, and watching the videos and seeing how helpless the people must have felt, but they seem to be sitting out there. I think more people need to learn, unfortunately, they need to learn what gunfire sounds like. I took the video and I showed it to my wife, and I said, hey, check this video out. I said, notice how, I talked to her like she's a gun person. I said, notice how it doesn't sound like a machine gun. It sounds kind of sporadic. Like the rate picks up and slows down. It kind of burps a little bit there. And she goes, that sounds like loud snapping, doesn't sound like a gunshot. And I said, oh yeah, that's because that's the bullets passing overhead. She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, the supersonic crack of the bullet is different from the gunshot. She goes, no, why would I know that? And in a kind of moment of levity, I was like, oh, that's right, you've never been shot at. Oh, let me explain to you what it's like to be shot at, or what it sounds like when a gun's shooting your direction. Is those people didn't know what that was. And I think most people don't know what that is, that you're going to hear what I call maybe a bullwhip snap, or taking a 2x4 and smacking a piece of wet cardboard. That real loud pop is the supersonic crack of a bullet going over your head. And then, depending on how far away the gun is, some moments later, you're going to hear a gunshot in the distance. So you're going to hear that snap before the gunshot, Because if you hear the snap, the supersonic crack, that means it's going faster than the speed of sound, which means it's going to beat the sound of the gun firing to you, which is kind of weird to think about. But so that's what I heard in the video. You hear the snap, 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 and then in the distance, that's what that was going on. I can actually tell you how far away the person is shooting at you, and people just didn't know what to do. I'm shocked, Jason. Have you seen any of the videos yet?
I have. I've watched them.
Were you as shocked as I was that people just kind of crouched down and didn't do much? I think they looked paralyzed by not knowing what the right decision was, so they didn't move. I can't imagine that many people and not everyone taking off running even in any direction.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's like you said, it's a matter of, I think, not knowing. I
Yeah.
mean, who wants to be shot at? Nobody.
Right. Or even, are we being shot at? Are those fireworks? Is it that person over there being shot at? Yeah, there's a lot of confusion going on. One of the things I like to impress upon people as far as tactical thinking is, especially when it comes to like a gunfight when, fractions of a second matter. This is a rule that was instilled upon me is even a wrong decision now is better than the best decision too late. So that's overstated a bit. We can maybe call it, a mediocre decision now, but I still think a wrong decision now. When the gunfire starts going and they realize it's gunfire and you're in danger and you don't even know which direction it's coming from, just running any direction, in my opinion, is better than standing still. Or taking cover somewhere, even if it's on the wrong side of something, you have a better chance that you were on the right side of the cover than standing still. So just try and remember that it's not a game of picking what the best option is or having looked back 5 minutes in the future what the best decision would have been. It's doing something. It's taking action and following through with it and then modifying your behavior if you need to as you go. But yeah, make a decision now. It doesn't matter if it's right or not. That's how you'll stay a better chance of staying alive. The other thing I thought about is how much people in the firearms industry, especially the self-defense world, or especially people that fancy themselves, either weekend warriors or want to prepare for things, which I get, but how much of their focus is on how to put holes in other people and not enough focus on how to prevent holes in themselves. That might sound a little harsh. Maybe you need to buffer me, Jason, but that's what a gunfight is, right? The gunfight's not putting holes in the other person. The gunfight's putting holes in the other person before they can put holes in you.
Right.
Or if they do put holes in you, surviving with a certain number of holes while not making them survive with a certain number of holes. That's a gunfight. And it's amazing that we would think a football team was foolish for only focusing on offense and never focusing on defense being half the game. But in a gunfight, it is defense. So I thought, man, maybe I need to, here's an opportunity to, I don't know, is it a business? Is it a charity? Is it an free education? Is it what? Of how to make a belt into a pseudo tourniquet, how to do battlefield first aid, like not being careful and keeping your hands clean and gloves and stuff, but literally having a giant safety pin in your wallet. So when someone needs an airway, you yank their tongue up as hard as you can and safety pin their entire tongue to their cheek so that they have an airway. That's the most crude possible way of giving someone a way to breathe without getting like an actual airway in there. And any EMT in the world will get sued for doing that. But in the battlefield, great. I'd be happily have my cheek pierced with a giant safety pin through my tongue and stay alive. But that's not the kind of medicine that's taught to EMTs or taught to first responders. And I get why it's not, because there's people like me that are lawyers out there. But when it comes down to it, I'd rather somebody knows how to do that and take their ID badge from the concert or the piece of plastic from the granola bar wrapper and how to stop a sucking chest wound. People don't know how to do that. Or maybe even a kit. I was imagining a kit the size of like a magazine, like the size of a Glock magazine, essentially. That was a chest seal. They sell, pre-made, like they call them Asherman chest seals or Vaseline gauze, wrapped around some like Kerlex gauze, some like the fluffy good gauze, and some like Quick Clot. Having that wrapped into like a tiny shrink wrap package, man, if we could get people in the habit of carrying something like that, even into a concert where you can't carry a firearm, who's going to stop you from carrying gauze? That would be the most priceless thing in the world if you needed it at that moment. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, being prepared is key in any situation, no matter what it is. And unfortunately for those people, I mean, it wasn't even a gunfight as we're talking about. For them, it
Yeah.
was someone who, for whatever reason, decided
Mhm.
he wanted to hurt a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the sad part for me is, everybody starts blaming guns, of course.
Hmm.
And the sad part is the gun didn't do it. The person behind the gun did it. And whether it was a gun or a bomb or a car or any other way, if somebody wants to go out and be crazy and hurt someone, they're probably going to do it.
Yeah.
And the best thing you can do is try to be as prepared as you can, and like you said, be as ready as you can, no matter what it is.
Yeah, it's not the inanimate object, and I know that's easy for us to say, but Hillary Clinton came out and said, thankfully he didn't have a silencer because it could have been so much worse. Well, actually, no, I don't think it would have changed anything. And by the way, he could have had a silencer. That's the biggest problem I have with that argument is they say, well, good thing that silencers aren't easy to get. Yeah, they were a little bit of a pain, but this guy had some nice guns. This guy took his time with equipment and everything. There's nothing to say that he couldn't have waited to get a silencer. So the fact that he didn't have one isn't oh, thank God they're so hard to get, because he passed every federal background check already. He didn't have one because he didn't want one. If that guy wanted the silencer, he would have had a silencer. So that tells you either that the silencers aren't near as effective as you think they are because he consciously chose not to have one, or it's irrelevant. But blaming the inanimate object because the death toll could have been higher. Well, you know what? Thank God he didn't get rid of the guns completely and use a box cutter, because then he could have killed as many people as 9/11. Right? I mean, going backwards down the evil inanimate object scale to a box cutter killed more people. So to, after the fact, say, well, thank God he didn't have XYZ. Well, you know what? Thank God he didn't have a friend with a semi truck going through the crowd at the same time, because then he would have killed more people. We should ban semi trucks. We could always say, thank God he didn't have X, Y, or Z, and it would look different after the fact. You're right. He's a crazy person. Whether he uses a pressure cooker or whether he uses a gun, I mean, I have to admit, the gun was effective for him. And if I could wave a magic wand and make it to where he never got a gun into his hands, yeah, that might have solved the problem. However, we're never going to do that. There's just no way we could ever get rid of guns. I mean, we tried to ban crystal meth. That doesn't work. We tried to ban alcohol
Yeah,
during
they're
the
still going to get it.
Prohibition. That doesn't work. Right? We have a zero tolerance policy in this country on crystal meth, and it's everywhere. How's that working out for us? And we're already starting with more guns in the United States. So that's the problem is, maybe if you really could guarantee me that the law would always be followed, okay, now we can have a reasonable discussion on, who can have or not have guns. And that even scares me because I'm a pretty libertarian. I don't like the government deciding who can have them anyway. I'm just saying we can't even start the rational discussion until somebody could admit that gun laws are kind of going to be ignored. I mean, until you're ready to make the penalty for a firearms offense greater than murder, you can't even start the conversation. Because the penalty for murder didn't dissuade this person. So whatever the gun crimes be, it has to be worse than murder to even have a possibility of making the person not do it. It's crazy. It's horrible that it happened, but I think you're right, Jason. He's the sick person. The gun's the tool, and it's horrible that it happened.
It is. It's very
Casey brought up
horrible.
here, dude on multiple planes. You're right. He had a pilot's license. Yeah, if he couldn't have guns, what he could have done with a plane. Maybe we should be thankful he only had guns. That's a really good point, Casey. I never thought about that. And some people are talking about Dark Angel for medical care. That's awesome. Yeah, combat life-saving course. I agree with that. That's what I'm saying is the first aid stuff. I'm actually, I think I've let it lapse. So I'm sure I've let it lapse. I was actually a nationally registered EMTI. That's the EMT intermediates between a regular EMT and a paramedic. And we had a rule in the Ranger Battalion that every small group, or every, I don't know if it was a rule, but we tried to make it where every small group had at least one EMT in it. And so in a sniper team, there's two of us. So I got to be the EMT, which actually is not the good job to have. It's a lot more training, a lot more testing, a lot more gear to carry. And if you're the one that's hurt, it doesn't do you any good because the other dude's not an EMT. But a lot of things we talked about were, we went to a civilian EMT course, and the lady kept saying, okay, I want to teach you guys something that you guys can do to each other, but you could never do to a civilian because it's against the law. Like the safety pin through the tongue, or things like that. when it comes to that situation, I think people need to do combat lifesaver stuff. I think you guys are right. I mean, a sucking chest wound, first off, bleeding out, choking or bleeding out is how someone's going to die mostly. But a sucking chest wound is probably a close third. You know, just knowing that they could take that granola bar wrapper out or whatever out and smack it over the hole in somebody's chest and apply a light amount of pressure that allows the air to burp out, you know, every time they're exhaling, not only will prevent the sucking chest wound from getting worse, it'll actually cure it. It'll actually get the pressure out and solve it. You know, things like that people don't know. And the analogy I was saying, Jason, about the, you know, practicing for what happens when you get holes in you, and it wasn't a gunfight. You're right. I just think so many people think about, you know, survival as offense. That's all I mean, is they only think about it as how to score a touchdown. They don't think about, okay, what happens when I am just sitting out there and I'm the one getting shot at? You know, they spent way more time on how to draw their gun and how to shoot, and way less time on, okay, how do I avoid getting shot? Or how do I, if I do get shot, what do I do then? You know, no one seems to practice the defense as much as they do the offense. I think it needs to be a good balance.
Well, and it's good to be, like you said, prepared. I mean, even in a whole different scenario, like when I go hunting, I'm by myself. I try to let someone know the location I'm going to be in case I don't come back. But in my backpack, there's a small medical kit, a very small suture kit. And then if you're able to find it or get someone that has some, you know, just a small amount of antibiotics in case you get trapped or need to take them just to keep things from setting in until you're found for a couple of days. I mean, all these little things to me are important to have. I hope it never happens. But if it did, I want to make it through.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this might wake people up to some of the battlefield medicine, combat lifesaver type courses out there. And just keep it in mind. First off, nothing I'm giving you is medical advice. I'm not saying to go do this yourself. But I think there's a certain point when it comes to, I don't know what you call it, but martial medical law, where I'm going to throw some of the things out the window. You know, I'm going to go into the Good Samaritan protection, which is if you happen to be laying there next to me and I can make something better by shoving a giant safety pin through your tongue and your cheek, I'm going to do it. And you try and sue me later, I'll be damned. We're in the middle of getting shot at in a mass shooting right now. I'm trying to save lives. You know, I think some of those rules go out the window. So I think people should learn that kind of stuff and not be afraid to act. You know, not be afraid to help, but even just what to look for. Like most people that even take, you know, CPR classes or things like that will look at somebody's leg that is literally squirted out of it and completely miss the fact that the person's choking. You know, just knowing what to look for first, knowing to check, you know, the basics, airway, breathing, circulation, ABC, you know, focusing on those things. Once the airway and breathing is going good, then focus on the circulation and, you know, stopping the blood loss. You know, what shock really is. I mean, I took a concealed carry class in Arizona. The instructor drove me nuts. It gave me a bad taste in my mouth for classes. And I've never had that bad of an experience again, but the guy was bad. And so he asked one time, and he did what I like to call the stump the chump questions. He liked to ask questions just to try to get you to give the wrong answer. But he's asking, so, well, how do people die? How do people die? And I raised my hand and said, they die from shock. Because it's true. Anyone that has any medical training knows that every single person in the world dies from shock. That's what you're dying from. So shock is inadequate tissue perfusion, meaning you don't get the blood to where it needs to go. So there might be different causes for that, but that's eventually what you're dying from. And he came back with, no, shock is a complicated concept. And when someone's, you know, really scared or surprised at what happened, you know, that's too complicated to be understood. And he went into another time, he went on. And I remember thinking then, man, this guy's teaching a firearms training course and he doesn't even understand the basics of what's going on. We need better training.
Yeah, and I would like to also go back to what you were talking about with silencers. When I first shot a silencer, it was an eye-opener to me. It's not like the movies, man, especially with big caliber guns. They're still loud.
Yeah.
I mean, it was shockingly loud. I mean, it wasn't enough to hurt my ears or make my ears ring.
Yeah.
But it's not this, hey, where'd that come from? And I can barely hear it.
Yeah. It's not the
no, it's not. And
which is a bummer when it's your silencer and you just spent all this money and waited like almost a year for it, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
But it really shocks people when I have this discussion with them. I'm like, no, it's loud. It's still loud.
So I
So
wrote a
it's a
little bit of an article, I think this morning, maybe last night, I forget. I've been insanely busy the last few days, obviously because of all this legal and issues about it. But yeah, there's two sounds to a gun. Most guns, one's the supersonic crack of the bullets, the other is the expanding gases of the quote unquote explosion. It's not really an explosion, but of the gunpowder going off. And the silencer only takes care of the latter, the explosion or the expanding gases. And even then, it's just like a muffler on a car. You can still hear the cars running. You can still hear those gases, but you can especially hear the supersonic crack of the bullet if you're shooting supersonic ammo. Um, but the best argument is, even if it was as quiet as the movies, even if it would have made it just that much more advantageous for this guy had cameras in the hallway rigged to a like video system that he was watching in the hotel room. This guy thought everything out. You're telling me that if a silencer would have been a material benefit to him, that he would have went and gotten one? That alone to me is the argument of who cares what we think they sound like? Who cares what we think it would have done as an advantage? This guy clearly did everything he could to get the best advantage. If it would have helped, he would have used it. He didn't use it, so done. You know what I mean?
right.
So either way, it's horrible that it happened. It's horrible that it's going to happen again. It is. There's no way it can't, continue to happen. It's not gun laws, in my opinion. I don't think it is in yours either, Jason. We've got a problem with crazy people, and even that scares me to say. Calling it a mental health issue scares me too, because then, where do you cross the line where the government is starting to decide who can and who can't have a gun? You want to draw the widest circle around people if you're the government, which I don't want them to do. What are they going to say? Military veterans, you're most likely to have potential issues. No more guns. That's really, really scary. I don't want the government getting there, but it's still something we got to discuss. It's still something we got to figure out, because I don't know, man. Someone on YouTube said, do I think there'll be snipers posted up at events like this from now on? Man, I hope so. I think there should be anyway. I actually thought about this not as a way to monetize the tragedy, but as a way to how do I get training to these snipers? I've never found a group of people that are less likely, in small chunks, but less likely to take training. So about half the cops I meet, I offer free training to cops all the time, especially wherever I move or meet local people. Hey, you guys want some free training? I'll spend a couple days with you out the range. Half the cops go, oh, heck yeah, we'd love some free training. And the other half, I'm not kidding, stick their nose up and they're like, no, we're the SWAT team. We know what's going on. We don't want training. I'm like, okay, I'm still here. There's actually a local police department that I've had to follow up with for the past year more than once, and they just won't return my calls or don't want the help. I'm trying to give them free help. So if you guys can think about a way for me to do it, I kind of want to get like cases of my books together, like for free, and get them to the cops. So I don't know how to do that. If you guys can think of a good idea how to make sure that law enforcement have access to this, because I heard it took them 72 minutes to get this guy, which is exactly the point of why you need to be able to defend yourself or react, because when seconds count, the cops are minutes away. Now, they're heroes. They did an amazing thing, but 72 minutes must have felt like an eternity for the people that were having to to go through that.
Oh, yeah.
I can only imagine how a competent sniper could have stopped the problem. What was he, 450 yards away?
I didn't hear an exact answer, but yeah, something like that.
Yeah, between 400 and 500 yards away. A competent sniper, they know exactly where the windows are. They can see where the fire is coming from the guns going off. Could have stopped that gunfight, or not gunfight, the massacre, pretty quick. Or at least made the guy be taking cover to where he's not going to be near as effective. So maybe we do need to have more snipers out there, but if we do, we need to have them trained too, because I don't want the stereotypical internet commando sniper, which unfortunately some of the SWAT cops are, because they have to get their training on. They don't have sometimes this access to the schools. And excuse me, when I come along and offer them free training, they turn it down. But I want them to be the style that I like, which is get close enough and shoot. I don't want them sitting there doing ballistic calculators and wind meters and trying to figure out all these things when there's a shooting going on. But man, my students that go through the course and anyone that practices enough at 400 or 450 yards should be able to hit a head-sized target all day long. So yeah, if you guys figured out, write to me. If you guys have access to the law enforcement groups, I mean, if they're not getting the training because it's the money, I don't want that to be an issue, and I don't want to profit off of this. So, yeah, let me know, guys. I'd be more than happy to give out free books. Maybe I'll give, maybe it'll be ebooks or something. Maybe that'll be the easier way to distribute it. But I think they need to get out there.
Yeah, I think training is going to be crucial. And like you said, the police did an amazing job. I mean, they did as much as they could do as fast as they could do it. And yeah, would you say 72 minutes?
Yeah, I think is what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an eternity. I mean, that's a long time.
So, do you agree that a competent, not even a sniper, a competent rifleman could at least help?
Absolutely.
450 yards? I mean, come on. And I think there's no reason that even one of the cops just walking around could not have a rifle, nearby or something like that. It's just, so I think maybe it's training, maybe it's just awareness. Maybe they'd be scared and not know how to figure out how to do that. But so I remember when George Bush was running for the second time, the son, most recently, I went out to it used to be the Bank One ballpark. Now it's Chase Field. You remember that? The baseball stadium in downtown Phoenix?
Bob.
Yeah, Bob, Bank One ballpark. Bob sod, the grass they had out there. For those of you that don't know about Bank One ballpark or now Chase Field, it has a swimming pool in the outfield. So just past right field, there's actually a swimming pool where you can buy tickets for the game and hang out in the pool and drink beers. So he came out there to speak as part of his campaign rally, and that's the only campaign rally I've ever gone to. So I went there, and it was kind of neat because I was way to the right side, so way over to like the first base side in the crowd, and I was right near the sheriff's department snipers, and they were like right across the aisle from me because they were in an area where they had the seats open and they had their gear bags all stuffed underneath their seats, and they're sitting there with the laser rangefinders and binoculars. And they spent the whole time looking through the crowd, finding good-looking girls, which I don't blame them. I mean, good-looking girls can be terrorists too, I guess. But instead of doing what I wish they would have done, and I've taught this in courses ever since I saw these guys make this mistake, they should have had a rough range card. So if a police sniper was out there at the concert and was sitting and looking around, he should be looking at the known major landmarks and take an index card and just really struff like a rough drawing or scratch out kind of what's going on. The stage, a couple buildings in the distance, maybe the corners of the parking lot, and then lays them with a laser to see how far they are and write them down. So just a quick little overhead view map. If they would have been doing that the entire time, because they spent like an hour and a half before President Bush showed up, and they would have seen, they would have had laid out the scoreboard or the far end of the field or things like that, then heaven forbid if anything ever did happen, they could just pull out their rifle, turn to the right dope, and engage. But instead, they spent the whole time trying to find the girls. And I even made the point that if they did a proper range card, they would spend much less time than they did going, no, she's over there. No, up a couple rows. No, here. They couldn't like find who they're talking to. And I remember thinking, if you guys can't even agree on where the girl is that you're trying to check out, how in the world are you going to agree on where the bad guy is? Right? Like that should be a lesson to these guys to do range cards. So anyway, lessons like this, maybe there's a chance for this combat lifesaver type training, this rifleman training, whereas we may not have the time for everyone to be specialties anymore. We may not have to wait for the paramedic, and you may not have to be able to wait for the SWAT sniper. Maybe you got to have the average police officer be the rifleman that just knows how to shoot out to 500 yards. Maybe everyone needs to figure out how to do, the intermediate, or immediate action stuff for combat lifesaver. As Hurricane said, I've always wondered about how selective the top SWAT teams are for their snipers. They're not that selective. Ironically, because I didn't even make the connection until I just started saying the sentence, the best SWAT team I've ever worked with is the Las Vegas SWAT team. Didn't even think about that seriously connection until I was saying it. They're just really well-trained snipers. Trained them a couple times out in Phoenix, and good dudes. They know how to shoot. They're open to new ideas and things like that. But the most of the time, especially in smaller towns, it's Joe Bob because he has the hunting rifle. So he's the one that has the rifle with the scope on it. So he's the sniper. Some of the bigger towns, especially the guys I've trained with, actually do get some training. They'll go to like some sort of local course, and They're shocked if I haven't heard of it because in the region it's the quote unquote sniper course, but they'll go get like a 4-day sniper course. But most of them don't know which way their turrets move. Countless times I see cops turn the turrets the wrong direction or not even know how many clicks their turrets adjust per minute or per mil, or just the absolute basics, because they go to these shooting schools that focus on what is a minute and a mil, how do you shoot it, like the stuff that my book kind of focuses on, which is the basics, which is great for a basics book, but that's not how you actually perform as a professional sharpshooter or sniper. It's a training issue, man. It makes me sad.
Yeah, the whole thing is sad. I mean, really, it's just horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even sadder, like you said. I mean, the reality is you don't know the situation. Like you said, you can't necessarily put it on mental. He was mentally just out of it, or crazy, or any other word. I mean, we don't know what was going on in that guy's life. It could have
Mm-hmm.
just been he hit the end of whatever rope he was on. And it is sad to say that, that this is going to continue. And the best thing we can do is just be prepared.
Yeah. Yeah. Or at least think about it. Just spending 30 seconds thinking about it right now, so that if it does happen, you know that all you remembered is you're going to run. You're going to grab anyone that you love and go. And if you can, help somebody. Please do. This is when being an American comes out. I don't care if you guys give me flack for saying this, though. If my kids are with me somewhere and gunfire starts, my job is to be their dad first, and then try to be a hero to somebody else second. I get it. That sounds selfish, but I've got to take care of them first. I'm never going to be able to focus anyway until I can get them to safety, and then I can maybe think about helping other people. But just realizing, just hit the fan, here we go, grab the kids and get to safety. Or if you have an opportunity to stop the threat, do it. It is going to be infinitely better than standing there for 15 seconds in psychological shock, not figuring out what's going on. Tony said the average everyday patrol officer gets no long-range rifle training. You're right. That's actually what I've been working with this local, or this, I shouldn't say local because I don't want to give away exactly who it is, but police department, where they trying to talk to them. I said, for free training, I will cycle through all your certain type of police officers and give them designated marksman training. They all have AR-15s. I will spend the next year, and every other week, you can send me a new group of them so we can cycle through the training cycle, and I will make them more competent, proficient with the AR-15 for free. And the police department says, oh, yeah, we'll think about it. Or we got this training over here, because I just don't get it. So again, you guys have a contact that would allow me to better distribute training or knowledge or information to first responders. Please let me. Tim Wing added, same as putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. I thought of the exact same thing as I was saying it, Tim. That was the analogy I was going to say, and I decided not to. So that's perfect. On a maybe a better note, Jason, or can we move on just for a little bit and maybe wrap it up for the night? Sure. I don't want to cut it off too soon. It seems crass, but I don't know what else we can say about it. Someone wrote in with a good email for an idea that I pulled up. Said, my book and this podcast with Jason, we state that a shooter is the weakest part of the system. That's true. And that at 1 minute of angle is a good, now that's true when it's a good system. So Jason and I can both outshoot rifles. It's got to be a bad rifle, but we could do it. But if you have a competent system, no. So Jason Richards just made a funny comment that I'm actually not going to read, because if I say that comment, then I'm going to say the word he says I'm going to say. I'm going to prove him wrong. Is the weakest part of the system. At 1 minute of angle is a good measure of accuracy by a shooter. Although Jason Richards, I did talk to that company yesterday, and they were very thankful that I was like their unofficial spokesman. And I said, well, you guys can fix that, right? I can be your official spokesman pretty easy. So 1 minute of angle is a good measure of accuracy by a shooter. I think that's true too. Custom shops claim that their rifles can shoot a 1/2 to 3/8 minute of angle, and they cost $3 to $4.5 grand. Amateurs. I shoot a Remington 700 Police rifle in .308, great rifle, and it shoots 1 minute of angle. Does that mean his rifle's full potential could be as good as a $3,000 custom rifle? practical potential, if that's such a thing, yeah. Um, yeah, your rifle can be just as good. So let's just take this horrible shooting that happened. A 700 police would do everything you needed it to do. If it can shoot a minute of angle, that means you can hit a 4-inch target at 400 yards. That is all you need to do. Now, if you get a custom rifle that can shoot a half minute of angle, great. That means it can, not that it will. It has the capability to shoot a half minute of angle. And if the shooter is good enough, well, then great. Now you've just got a system that you can stack all those things in your favor. Now you can shoot a 2-inch group at 400 yards. That's going to be even better. But if you're a minute of angle shooter and you got a minute of angle gun, call it a day. Just go practice getting better at shooting and heck, enjoy it. Too many guys chase the accuracy so much that they leave the range pissed. I don't know about you, Jason, but if I left the range pissed, I don't think I'd do it anymore.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because when I first started into the long range thing, I was chasing that rainbow or that unicorn of, okay, I this is how accurate I want to be. And you're right. It all falls back in this case on me. And once I stuck with the minute of angle and set that goal, it's been wonderful. And I'm able to hit it. Now I'm starting to hit underneath it a little bit. So
Yeah.
a reasonable goal is, to me, everything. Because I started backwards and started to get a little frustrated.
And it's not even going low. A minute of angle, it's a pie plate at 1,000 yards. You're telling me you wouldn't be happy hitting a pie plate at 1,000 yards? Right?
Oh, I'd be thrilled.
Yeah, that's a minute of angle. So I think all this talk about, oh, it's a half-minute gun. You know what? If you're really honest with yourself, I'll tell you, I don't shoot a half-minute group every time I go to the range. It just doesn't happen. I pull shots. Maybe it's the equipment. Maybe it's me. Who knows? It doesn't happen. Now, when I shoot my best group of the day, yeah, that's the one I take a picture of, right? I go, look how good this group was. Man, that rifle shot one whole group. The first 2 groups where they were all over the place, oh, don't worry about that. That was a cold bore or something like that, or I was getting the scope settled in. So no, we're talking average, and again, for shooters, especially when it comes to military police or that kind of shooting, the group you can shoot next is all that matters. You shot a half-minute group, awesome. But right now, grab the rifle and shoot 400 yards that way at the guy that's shooting everybody else. Can you do it? That's the accuracy you should be using to measure. And if that level of accuracy, 1 minute of angle, is all you could ever ask for. So yeah, I think you're right. A reliable rifle like that brand, I'm not going to say, Jason, or a Remington 700 Police or something like that is competently accurate. I would way rather you have that and save the rest of your money on ammo for practice and training. My biggest sales pitch for a Cleckner rifle is not to buy it. You shouldn't buy it. It's for the very select few people that want the absolute best they could possibly get. For everyone else, I hope that you've gotten the message out of my book or from this podcast or with conversations with Jason that good enough is good enough. I'm the anti long range shooting guy when it comes to the geeky precision stuff. Seriously, people get so lost in the minutia that it's not even fun anymore. It's not even possible anymore. Just go freaking shoot, and you get within a minute of angle. Congratulations! Now go shoot at distance and have fun. So yeah, don't go crazy on the equipment. Don't go crazy on the minutia. Go enjoy shooting for the sake of shooting. Don't go shooting just because you want to shoot pretty groups. I mean, if you want to do that, great, do that. But that just sounds boring to me.
Well, and let's face it, and I think you've already brought this up once before. When they claim that a gun can do a half a minute or 3/4 of a minute, they're not shooting it. It's in a controlled situation in a vise.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as stable as it can get. No canting, no moving around or laying down. I mean, it's...
Yeah. You're going to miss by the wind, by the way. You're shooting at long distance. Your wind reading is going to be off more than a half minute of angle. So start shooting, get that 700 Police and learn how to read the wind, and you'll be way better than somebody with a ultra precision rifle that can shoot a half minute of angle every time and they don't understand the wind calls. Because at 500 yards, I'm just assuming I'm going to be holding a half mil at least one direction or the other for wind. So half mil, was that a couple minutes? Rounding error, it's about a couple minutes. So already the wind is going to blow you more than that half minute that the custom rifle is going to get you. So
right
there you go. Learn how to shoot. Go have fun with it. And then make a goal of actually doing something functional whether that's smacking steel or whether that's breaking a clay pigeon or whether that's shooting groundhogs or whether that's whatever it is, please get away from just shooting pretty groups. I'm sorry for the bench rush shooters out there, but man, that is mind numbing. I shoot groups because I have to. And the second I'm done, I go actually accomplish something with the bullet. So I'll get some hate mail for that one, but bring it on.
Yeah. Well, and just look at where I'm at with where I've started. I haven't even gotten into windage yet. I'm still working on getting all my elevation dialed in where I can hit consistently.
But you've seen that, right? You see more than a half minute of the shift with wind.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Absolutely.
So stop worrying with a half minute with the rifle and learn how to shoot. So Stephen Wood said that I got him hitting a 12 by 12 inch target at 1,000 yards with the rifle. I'm not going to say, just to get a rise out of Jason. Buy it and you'll love it. He's right. We had people out there with that brand rifle, like off the shelf, that brand rifle and factory ammunition, shooting 12 inch by 12 inch square targets at 1,200 yards on the second day of a 2-day long range course. It was possible. Stephen was hitting at 1,000 yards. 12 inches by 12 inches, guys. It's all you need. Don't go crazy. Matter of fact, some people that have the more custom rifles had more troubles. They were either more finicky for loading or extracting or for things like that. It's crazy. Too many good questions are coming up. So now I've been begging you guys to ask questions, and now you're asking so many I can't get into them. Is there anything else you want to cover, Jason, on these questions before we go on?
No, I think we're doing good right now.
Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in tonight, guys. Thanks for being so involved. Jason and I, as we get the hang of the comments better, we'll do a better job addressing them. But remember, most of the people are listening to the podcast in their car on their way to work and they can't see them. So maybe we'll start saving them, Jason, for future topics. But thanks for tuning in, man. I really appreciate having you back. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for having me.
So everybody else, pick up and spread the word about the Long Range Shooting Handbook. I'd appreciate it. If you're thinking about getting an FFL, go check out rocketffl.com. If you want to do the CCW valid in over half the country, go to rocketccw.com. People are signing up now. The email list has been insane for people signing up for that. All the footage has been filmed, and I'm getting editors to put it all together now so we can get up and do that. I just really, really, really appreciate all the support. But the biggest thing you can do for this podcast, if you still want Jason and I to give up the time away from our families to come talk and ramble about guns and answer some of your questions, is tell other people about it. Spread the word to get more people listening and leave some feedback, either in iTunes or Google Play. However you listen to this podcast, the better feedback you leave and the more you spread the word, the more it helps us. So thanks again, everybody, and we will see you next week.
See you, everybody. Take care.